Hi everybody, I hope you're all doing really well. Back today to talk about 5 autumn reads. So yes, we are back to do seasonal reading recommendations. Here we are talking about books that invoke the ideas of back to school, of Halloween, the days getting shorter, a little bit chillier, wrapping up warm, just general coziness. This is my favourite time of the year, so you can imagine that a lot of the books on this list are some of my favourites as well. So without much further ado, let's just get straight into these 5 recommendations. The first book I have to recommend to you today is The Secrets of Hartwood Hall by Katie Lumsden. And the reason I'm recommending this is because this is very much a love letter to Gothic fiction. Set in 1852, it follows Margaret Lennox, a young widow who has taken up the position of governess to an only child, Louis, and she is living with Louis and his mother, Mrs. Evesham, but starts to suspect that all is not what it seems in this home, that there are some family secrets that need to be unravelled. But also Margaret herself has secrets of her own that she is not telling the family. And as she starts to stay longer and learns more about this family, is she really prepared for what she's going to uncover? I think this is a fantastic book for autumn because it is just so atmospheric. As I say, it's got that real infusion of Gothic historical fiction, which just seems perfect for October, November. Everything is shrouded in mystery and secrecy. And I know so many of you love to curl up with a book that has a little bit of a mystery plot. And I also feel like this is a great book for if you've gotten to Victober and you're actually not feeling like picking up a classic, you want to pick up something that is more contemporary but that is going to give you that feeling of a Victorian novel. This is just the perfect place to go. It also is haunting and Gothic, but without being too spooky and scary. It will give you the ambience of autumn, but without absolutely terrifying you, which is the right dose for me. The next recommendation is a book that I recommend all the time. You're probably sick of me by now, but that's because I feel like this is a very underrated book and more people should read it, and it is The Instrumentalist by Harriet Constable. Now, you might be thinking a book that is set in 18th century Italy is maybe not the best pick for autumn, surely that is more of a summer read, but the reason that I do so is, once again, this is a very atmospheric book. It is set in an orphanage which doubles as a music school, a very prestigious music school that trains young orphaned girls into becoming musicians. We are following our main character of Anna Maria, who is a violin prodigy. And despite the fact that this does take place in Venice, you get really very little of the Venetian setting because this school is so claustrophobic and restrictive that actually, more so than a summery Venetian vibe, what I get from this book is more of a strict disciplinarian school setting, and that makes me think of autumn. You've got this main character who is so fueled by her musical ambition that while being a sympathetic character, she can also be quite ruthless in her ambition to be the best of the best. Something not necessarily autumnal, but something that I think is beautiful is the vivid way that she describes how she is able to see music through colour. And I can just imagine curling up and reading the musical sections of this book, being able to imagine Anna Maria and the colours that she puts onto certain notes and to certain pieces. Another school setting that I would recommend for autumn is, of course, Wicked by Gregory Maguire, The Life and the Times of the Wicked Witch of the West, which of course was the inspiration for the hit stage musical that has recently been adapted into a film. And the second part of the film of the musical is coming out in November, so this is the perfect time to read this book. While the musical deviates quite heavily from Gregory Maguire's original book, I do still feel like the book is worth a read. Though just be prepared for the fact that it is more adult. It is a bit more politically intense. I think about a third of this book takes place in Shiz University, so obviously you've got that back to school feeling. These students all at their boarding school. Of course, because autumn has Halloween, you've got to throw in a book that has a little bit of witchiness. And what better way to do it than the original, The Wicked Witch of the West? Though what I will say about this book is that Elphaba's powers are not quite as strongly defined as they would be in the musical. There's a little bit more ambiguity around magic in this world. This book also has a lot more philosophical musings, not just on this idea of what it means to be good and what it means to be wicked, but also just generally about personhood. You've got conflict between the humans and the animals, and this idea of animals with a capital A who are anthropomorphized and able to speak, and humans wish for them to become animals lowercase who are seen but not heard. Deep messages in this book about prejudice and about injustices. For something a little bit lighter, we have a book that I read last year for the first time, which was Rewitched by Lucy Jane Wood. So we are staying with witches, but a little bit more of a cozier vibe. In this book we have Belladonna, or Belle Blackthorn, who is about to turn 30 years old and is a witch in a world that seems very similar to our own, aside from the fact that there are witches and wizards in this world who are kept secret. She was granted her powers at age 15, and what she was not told until her 30th birthday was that she was going to have to prove that she was worthy of her powers in something called an Equiwitch trial. And upon attendance at her Equiwitch trial, the coven, the powers that be, decide that she has really been neglecting her powers and she is probably not worthy of becoming a full evil witch and that they are going to take her powers away from her. However, due to a little loophole, she is given a month to rectify the situation, to train herself up to complete another task. Belle, who, as I say, has kind of been repressing her powers and not really testing out the true extent of her powers, is completely shocked by this revelation, is left reeling at this discovery, and is sent over to a guardian to harness the powers that she had neglected. As I say, this is a much more cozier witchy book than Wicked. It definitely evokes the feeling of putting like a cozy warm scarf and jumper on. It's not hitting you over the head with moral and philosophical musings. This is a book that I read when I was 29 on the way to becoming 30, and it felt so incredibly relevant. Belle going through this journey of self-development, learning her true capabilities. It's very relatable to be getting to 30 and to be thinking, what have I actually done with my life? Don't get me wrong, there are some absolutely terrible dastardly characters in this book, but the majority of them are really warm and lovely. Particularly Belle's best friend Ariadne, her mother Bonnie, and her magical mentor Artorius. And there is this real focus on family and friendship. And then finally, for another book that gives you this idea of community, of coziness, I'm going to recommend The Door-to-Door Bookstore by Carsten and Henn. And this book follows our main character of 72-year-old Carl, who works in a bookshop by day and spends his afternoons walking, traipsing through the village, and personally hand-delivering books that he thinks will really appeal to his clients. However, his bookstore has recently been taken over by a new owner who doesn't quite understand the charm and appeal of Carl, thinks that he is a relic and unnecessary to the store, and it does kind of send Carl into a bit of a tailspin. However, along the way, he ends up being accompanied on his book delivery walks by a young girl called Shasha, and a friendship develops between the two of them, and Shasha starts to make Carl see his customers in a new light. Where previously he'd always kind of seen these people as two-dimensional, transactional figures who he's just delivering books to, Shasha helps him to see the humanity of the people that he delivers to and inspires a new sense of community spirit in him. And I think the reason this feels autumnal to me is not only the bookish element, the literary element, but just the idea of delivering books on a cool, crisp autumn day just sounds like an activity I would love to do. As I say, you've got this theme of community and what it takes to keep a community alive, keep those connections together, particularly between generations. And I feel like as we all get busier in the autumn months, particularly on the lead up to Christmas, it's always just worth remembering the community that we are a part of and how we can make the lives of other people around us better. So there we go, those are my 5 quick recommendations for books to read in autumn. Please do let me know if you've read any of the books I've spoken about today. Alternatively, please let me know about any autumnal books that you would recommend. I would love to hear from you. I hope you're having a fantastic day, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. Thanks. Bye.